Hello everyone! In today's video, it's going to be part one of a two-part series for Moana. And so this first nail is going to be Moana. These nails are extreme. They are super long. They are incredibly detailed. They took me forever, but I love them. I hope you guys love them as much as I do. This one, the Moana, her hair actually continues around the underside of the nail. So you can look at it from the front or you can look at it from the back and it still looks just so rich and cool and textured. It is so awesome. I absolutely love this. I really made this for this one because she really likes Moana. She has a game with her grandpa. They call it Moana, 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 and they pretend that all of her dolls are Moana, and it's a whole intricate thing. But I hope you guys love this as much as we do, and don't forget to check out all of my other princess videos in the past. I do have a full playlist dedicated just to Disney princesses, so if you are a princess fanatic, I will direct you there, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!
So we're going to begin with a very beachy background, and I have this gorgeous kind of sandy glitter, sort of like a caramel colored glitter. And then I'm going to use a aqua, and I'm going to add very subtle ombre in the background just as the start of my ocean. So I've got an aqua and then a slightly darker teal, just kind of going over the background, blending those over the glitter so that it fades into it. Looks like the water is going over the beach. And then using both of those two aqua and teal colors in the background, as well as some white, I'm going to do just a little bit of marbling in the background that is horizontal instead of vertical, and blending a couple of those colors in between each other. That's just going to give you this very oceanic look. And then encapsulate this nail with a layer of clear acrylic. I absolutely love that background. I love it so much. It is so beautiful, and it just gives you that perfect Moana background, if you ask me. And when I'm encapsulating this, because it is so long, I didn't even try to do it in a single or even a 2 bead process. I did 3 just to kind of make it easier on myself. And then I'm going to file the nail into shape with my e-file. And now in a nail form backing, we're going to start sculpting Moana. So I began with her head, and for this, like I said, this is a very extreme over-the-top nail. If you wanted to sort of simplify this, you could definitely do this and you could make it a lot easier on yourself, and you could sculpt her directly on the nail. And there would be no problems with that at all. It could be much more wearable. You could even shorten up the nail and shrink the size of Moana if you wanted to. You may have to sacrifice a few of the details if you are going to make her smaller, but it would still look beautiful and it would be very wearable. In fact, if you do want to see a more wearable version of a Moana nail, I do have one from about a year ago, give or take, that is a Moana themed design that has, it's a two nail little design, but it's very cute and much more wearable and practical. But for this one, we have Moana's head, and then kind of bring that down and do her shoulders and then do her torso. And like I said, I've said this in past videos, a lot of times when I'm sculpting a character like Moana and they have clothes covering, the areas that they have clothes covering, I like to sculpt their body underneath it with the color of their skin. All, the same color, go all the way down and sculpt some height for their body and some depth for their body, instead of just trying to go from one color and then jump into their clothing color. It is especially, I would say, important for Moana because her top is not like her whole torso. She still has some belly showing. And so if you want it to just look smooth and not choppy looking, but like she is actually a human under there that's dressed, it's easier just to do the whole body with a single color. So then I'm going to be sculpting her arms. So with her particular view that we're looking at her from, she's turned to the side slightly. And so it may look, especially if you're sculpting things, it's very easy to get in your head about things and say, oh no, I can't trust the image I'm looking at because one arm is smaller than the other. But you have to look at your image and really see all the details so that things like those two arms being what almost looks like disproportionate actually is when you have the whole design done. So now that I have a very, flat layer of acrylic over the entire body for her and her face, I'm going to go through section by section and add some depth and a little bit more detail. So as you could saw, as I just said something, so okay, never mind. As you could see, I started out with her collarbone and I added just a little bit more of like a ridge to her collarbone, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to add a little bit more definition to her chest, and then I'm going to do her arms. One thing to keep in mind with Moana is she is very muscular. Like my husband probably is jealous of her muscular, which is saying something. He's very proud of his muscles, as I call them. But we have her little details going down her arms. and kind of pull that in. And you can sculpt as much detail as you would like on Moana, as far as, like I said, like muscle tone and collarbone, chest, however much you want to do is fantastic. If you want to do less than I did, there's no problem there. If you want to do more and really just go for it, then all the power to you. But it's, finding your balance between being really happy with your work and insanity. So figure out what works for you when you're doing this type of a design. So now I'm going to start doing the details on her face. And when I'm detailing her face, I really like to just kind of add a layer over the top of it and then use my brush to press in to the hollows of her face. So that's going to be eye sockets and cheek, like the hollows of her cheek mostly. And then as you do that, as you push the acrylic in, it'll kind of reroute where the acrylic is placed, and it'll bring out her cheekbones and like the ridge of her nose, and kind of start working in some of those details. And if you are sculpting a face for the very first time, don't try to rush it. Take your time, do things in layers. Don't try to do like the whole thing in one swoop. Do things little bit by little bit. At least that is my personal philosophy. So then after we have kind of that face and it's set up fairly well, I'm going to go back through and add another layer to her nose with the same color. And this color that I'm using in the background isn't quite dark enough for Moana, so you'll see what I do to combat that in a minute. But it does have a nice first layer to her skin tone. And I'm going to add a little bit more to her forehead. And I'm not sculpting her head very far up above where her hairline would be, but you do want to take it a little bit farther than what the hairline is so that you have something to attach her hair to. And so when you're sculpting it, it's really kind of important to just give yourself a little bit more space, mostly right along the top of her forehead line, just to give a little bit, because the hair needs something to attach to once you go through and sculpt her hair. So I've got a little bit more acrylic on her cheekbones. Like I said, layer by layer, just sort of building it up. And one thing I like to do is I always get reference photos on my phone. That's typically what I use for them. And so I have my phone right next to where I'm working. So it's basically right off where the camera sees is where my phone is sitting. So it's really close by, so I can have my eyes dart back and forth between what I'm working on and my reference photo. And it's amazing the little things that you can see when you just do a quick look back and forth to compare what you're working on to the reference photo to see what kind of details you're missing. And one thing that I like to do is I like to really zero in on specific areas. So I will try to block out every other detail. And especially for Moana, she's got some very, intense features. She's got very powerful, strong eyebrows. She's got this amazing mane of hair, and it makes it kind of hard to see the finer details. So you have to really focus on a specific spot to see the details that you're working on at that time. So now to kind of give her that warm, sunny glow, I'm going to use a bronze color of acrylic, and I'm going to wash over everything. So when I say wash over it, the acrylic is incredibly thin. And it's not going to add any depth to this or any thickness, and it hopefully isn't going to fill in any of the details that we've done, but it's going to give her almost like this bronzed glow. And I know right now she looks a little bit ridiculous as far as the bronziness because she's very shiny, but we will go through and it'll get a little bit less shiny when we're working on it. But then I'm also going to give her, I have a berry color of acrylic, and I'm going to add just a little bit of that berry tone on some of the high points. So her cheeks, on her shoulders, because if you look at her, she has, I don't want to say sunburnt because it's not sunburnt, but it's just like this kind of red glow. It's a little undercurrent of red on her skin that really makes it look like she spends every single day in the sunshine. And so then we're going to sculpt her top now that we have her skin pretty much to a good state. And we have a coral color, and I'm just going to be going through and sculpting it in a fairly thin layer over the top of her skin. Like I said, doing that gives it a much more realistic vibe that there is still the entire human underneath the clothes. So we're going to be doing that with that color. Just kind of pressing it out. And this is another place where you can really guide the direction of her body. So it does look like it's off to the side, like she's turned just a little bit. So it doesn't, every layer that you add kind of promotes the direction as far as, because like I said, her body's a little turned, so her arms are disproportionate. But when you add things like her shirt, it's really going to make everything look a little bit more obvious. And then I'm going to do her skirt with cream, kind of press it along. I don't have much of her skirt showing because I did cut off this design at that point, but just a little bit right at the base of where the design is to kind of finish off that area, I think. And then using that same cream color, I'm going to add just a little bit of detail to her top. Most of that detail did come with acrylic paint later on, but I did want to put in just a little bit to give it some height. And then after you have that part of her dress or her outfit done, then I'm going to sculpt her pendant with teal. So I'm just going to do a little oval, and it does overlap her top slightly. Put that down, kind of press it into that oval shape. It doesn't have to, like my teal isn't that pigmented, so it does show through some of the different colors, but that's okay because I ended up painting it later with some glitter to give it some extra shine and glam. So that'll be shown in a little while. But now going back to the original color I used for her skin, I'm going to be doing some highlights with it. So like I said, that bronze is almost too bronzy, and in order to kind of balance it out, I'm going to go back through and add another layer with that original sort of a medium tan color and just kind of wash over certain areas and give it some highlights so that the bronze really settles into more of the darker areas of her skin and the shading. And I'm going to add a little bit of that pinky reddish color to her nose, just like I did on her cheeks. And just kind of go, like I said, I have my eyes dart back and forth between my reference photo and what I'm working on so that I can constantly monitor what it is that I'm doing and make sure that it all looks like how it looks on my photo. And I'm going to add a little bit more of that taupe color to her face, or medium tan, not taupe, but just to brighten up certain areas. And then I'm going to sculpt her eyes with white. So I'm going to place down that bead of white acrylic and then press it into her eye shape. When you're doing this, I think it's really easy, at least for me, and maybe not for anybody else, but I think it's really easy to almost sculpt her eyes too large. And so you just have to kind of use some guidelines when you're sculpting things. So I like to say, look at the proximity of eyes to nose and eyes to side of face, or, depending on what you have done, eyes to lips, whatever you can kind of use as guides to help with that. That is a really great thing. And same thing with her eyebrows. Pay attention to where her eyebrows sit in relation to her nose, or how far are they between her eye and the top of her forehead? Are they halfway between? Are they, a third up from her eye? Are they, where are they? And the more kind of, I don't want to say math because some people really don't like math, but the more math you do about facial features and their placement, the better time you're going to have of it and the more confident you're going to be. Because if you know that where you're placing something is where it is supposed to go, then you're not going to kind of get in your head about it. And it's so easy to get in your head about what you're doing when it comes to any form of art that you can harm yourself. But you can harm what you're doing because you're too concerned about making a mistake that you're actually more prone to making mistakes. So if you stop looking at art as a challenge to make sure it's perfect, and you just stop and you start looking at it as almost like a roadmap between point A and point B, you may find that you have a lot easier time of it. Like I said, my personal way that I do things is what works for me. And if you find something that works better for you, and using my little measurement type of style isn't what's going to help you do your, create your art, then find a different method, but just try to keep creating. And the more that you do something, you're going to find that you have these little methods that just sort of kind of mature with your art. And maybe 6 months ago, you wouldn't have even thought you could do something like this. And now all of a sudden it's just something that comes naturally. And then it kind of just, like I said, it matures with you. So I'm going to take some thin black acrylic, and I added her eyebrows, and I'm going to do her lash lines, both upper and lower with it. And then after I have those lash lines done, she's getting really close to being complete. You can kind of clean up any areas that you need to, add a couple more highlights wherever they are necessary, add some shading if you need to. Just keep looking between everything that you're doing to find what is necessary. I'm just going to go back through and do some of those final little highlighting spots with that original tan color that I was using. Nose, chin, cheekbones, a little bit on her forehead. I do want to keep most of that bronzy quality to her face because she does have that sunny glow to her. So just do what is necessary, but don't try to overdo it. And then I'm going to just do a little bit more of the berry color for her lips. And now we're going to glue her to the nail. So I'm going to put some nail glue on the back, and I'm going to glue her offset on the nail so she's not like right in the middle, but more off to the side so that some of that background does show, because I just didn't have the heart to cover it up. I loved it so much. And then after I have her glued down, I'm going to be doing some details to the back of her. And this might actually be the first time I've ever really done that, where I've detailed the back of a piece, but she's so large that I couldn't help it. And there's just so much opportunity to add some detail. Plus, I wanted her hair to be sort of a 360-degree experience so that you could look at it from either side or even from like a profile view of it, and you could still see the curls. So I wanted the back of the nail to be complete as well. Plus, that gorgeous little gradient that we created in the base of the background is really pretty on the underside. So add just a little bit of detail to her clothes. So now this is the fun part, at least to me. I love doing her hair so much. It's a two-tone bead of black and that same bronzy brown. And we're going to place those down and let them just marble on their own. The black will pretty much take over, but that bronze color will show up here and there, and it'll give the black just some movement so it's not just straight black. Stretch that bead into a long stripe and then use the tip of your brush to go back and forth and create her curls out of it. So when you're doing that, you just press it, from left to right, then right to left, and just go back and forth, almost like you're crimping the edge of a pie crust. If you're somebody that makes pie, maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know, but just think of it, it's kind of like doing that with your fingers, except you're using an acrylic brush, obviously. But then you're going to take and you're going to wrap these curls around her head. So there's the first ones. And as you can imagine, this takes a lot of curls. And so the process is very time consuming. I would say this took me about 45 minutes to add all of her curls, but it was so worth it in the end. The final result with how just, amazing in 3D that they were. And they did look a lot like Moana's curls. And you want to kind of pull them out to the one side to look like she's got some wind going through her hair. There's the next one. So I kind of get in a rhythm with it when I'm doing this. As you can see, I'm working on multiple curls at a time, and they're in different stages of setting up because there's a very certain stage where the curl can be pressed into that curl pattern. So it goes from the straight line into the wave, and there's a certain spot after that you can pick them up and you can place them on the nail. And if you try to pick them up too soon, you'll end up stretching them or breaking them. And if you try to pick them up too late, then they won't have any flexibility and they won't stick. So everything is kind of about timing, and your timing may be different than mine if your acrylic is a different type of acrylic, if you have a fast setting, or if you say have a low scent monomer, that's going to make your acrylic set slower than mine. And you can probably, after maybe 2, 3, 4 curls, get into that, like I said, that rhythm and figure out what works for you. So you're not just doing a single curl at a time, because that would take significantly longer. So we're going to add some curls on the other side. I did kind of skip ahead a little bit just because it was the same process over and over and over again. And then after you have all those curls in place, you're going to take just some black acrylic and a little bit of that bronze color if you want to, and fill in some of the gaps and really secure her hair to her, because it's not necessarily completely stuck down. So you want to just fill in gaps wherever you can see them so that it is nice and snug, I guess. And then we're going to be adding all of our finer details with acrylic paint. And there's so much detail sculpted into this that there really didn't have to be too much done with acrylic paint. I'm going to be brightening up her eyes since the white I used wasn't as bright of a white as I would prefer. Doing a little bit of outlining on her lips and like her nose, and cleaning up her lash line, making that a little bit more black. You really want her eyes to be the most intense part of this design. And then I'm going to be doing first her irises with brown. I'm painting them in with just kind of like a 3/4 circle of brown. And then I'm going to do that same thing with that brown, and I'm going to be adding the string of the necklace or the cord, and then adding some different shading here and there with the brown, like especially that one armpit, because that's also going to help give her that profile view. Add a little bit of just highlighting and shading wherever you want to or need to fill it in, and kind of deepen the bronzing here and there if you want to. And then I'm going to take some gold, and I'm going to add a little bit of a gold highlight to her iris. And that's going to add just so much little detail with that little tiny outline to her iris with the metallic gold paint. And then going back to my brown, I'm going to be doing some details on her top. Like I said, most of that came with acrylic paint. And so there's just some little type of zigzaggy patterns. Add some polka dots on the white stripes on her top with just to make it look like it's the little shells. Add some of those shell patterns inside the chain or the cording of her necklace. Add her pupils, and then a little bit of glitter gel polish on her chain or on the pendant of her necklace, some matte top coat over Moana, and then gel sealer over the background so that that ocean looks nice and shiny and glossy. Kind of fill in everywhere you can so that it really shows up, and then gel sealer over her eyes and over the pendant. And that is it. My goodness, thank you guys for sticking with me that long for this video. This is a long one. There's so much detail worked into that I could not shrink it down anymore, and I didn't want to because I didn't want to miss anything that was an important detail. So I hope you guys love this nail as much as I do. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. If you want to stay or come back tomorrow to see the Pua design, I will definitely share that one with you, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.